Is he up mute? Yep. Steve, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect, all right.
Good to go here, Matt.
All right, let's just, it's 6 o'clock. All right, it's September 22nd, 6 p.m. This is the regular session of the Somerset School Board. I will call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alicia, can you take roll call when you're ready, please?
Yes. Steve Dagalaw. Corey Miller.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Lori Belargin.
Here.
Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Danny Erickson. Here. Matt Fugel.
Here. District mission, core values, and protocol reminders are all listed on the agenda. Please take a minute to review those. And when someone is ready, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Motion by Lori, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Corey, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2 on the agenda is public comment. I do have 2 requests here. The top one is Kelly Larson. We'll do 3 minutes, our typical, and whenever you're ready, go ahead and start.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Larson, 2132 54th Street. On August 29th, we gathered for a truly beautiful ceremony honoring 4 of Somerset's greatest: Robert Seibel, Fred Nimick, Bob Seibel, and my late husband, Bruce. It was an evening filled with pride, gratitude, and reflection. I want to extend my deepest thanks to our athletic director, Troy Brink, for his vision in bringing the Honor Plaza to life. My gratitude also goes out to the financial donors whose generosity made it possible, and to all the people who gave their time, energy, and talents to create this lasting tribute. It is a gift to our community and to future generations. Bruce lived and breathed football his whole life. It wasn't just a game to him. It was a way to teach, to lead, and to shape character. He was passionate, committed, and truly believed in using football as a platform to instill life's lessons. One of his proudest contributions was bringing the character education core principles to Somerset. I can still see the sparkle in his eye when he found a company in Minnesota that could print individual flags with those values. We hopped in the car for a road trip, really without knowing where we were going, to pick them up. He was so excited, proud, to fly those flags on game days. For him, they weren't just words, they were a way of life. The principles he championed were honesty, duty, respect, loyalty, courage, selfless service, and integrity. Bruce lived these principles every single day. On the football field, he challenged his players not only to work hard, but to hold themselves to the highest standard of character. In the classroom, he led with patience and encouragement, making sure students felt seen and valued. At home and school, he modeled respect, loyalty, and service in ways both big and small. His influence continues to ripple through this community. Former players still talk about the lessons he taught, lessons that extend far beyond the game of football. He taught them how to face adversity with courage, how to support one with loyalty, and how to lead lives rooted in honesty and integrity. The Honor Plaza is more than stone and design. It is a reminder of the values that shape Somerset. It is a place where we can pause, reflect, and remember the people who gave their hearts to this community. For me, it's a deeply meaningful reminder of Bruce, his love of football, his love of teaching, and his love of people. But this plaza is not only looking back, it is also about carrying these principles forward. Let us continue to live out honesty, duty, respect, loyalty, courage, and selfless service in our schools, on our teams, and throughout this community. That is the best way to honor Bruce and all of Somerset's greats, by letting their legacy guide the way we teach, lead, and live every day. Thank you.
Kelly, thanks for coming in and sharing that with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly.
Allison.
After that beautiful speech, God bless Bruce, my favorite weightlifting coach, the reason I became a personal trainer. I'll be back to see you guys in a couple weeks.
Okay. Anybody else for public comment? No. Okay. Moving on to item number 3, Spartan Spotlight.
All right. Well, we have 3 wonderful leaders we're going to invite up for this spotlight. As you know, on September 11th, we had our first annual Somerset Spartan Heroes Day, and these 3 individuals were really instrumental in making that come to life. They did some amazing work. Specifically, the work they did was at each level helping get the kids involved, so it was driven by student voice, and they did an amazing job. So we have Lindsay Thomas, Shannon Prochnow, and Amanda Whipke, and so elementary, middle school, and high school. We're going to go through a presentation. This is a modified version of what was on the screen when we had everyone out there. I thought we'd have them talk a little bit about the work that they did with the kids. They did an amazing job and definitely worth the spotlight. So if you want to click on the next one.
Yep.
So I guess I just introduced them. So
You
now,
want that?
so we're going to go through each, sure. So each one of these slides represents a portion of the day of that event. And then I thought we'd have each member that represents the level that was leading that talk a little bit about that experience. So we started with the pledge.
Yeah, so we had 4 fourth graders. They're listed there on the screen. They each spoke a little bit about the pledge. They let everyone know that each morning we say the Pledge of Allegiance as a school family, and we talked about how that helps to unite us, and talks about our patriotism and showing respect, and why we stand up, why we place our hand over our heart, that sort of thing. And then they led everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance.
It was very cool.
Well, I can't take credit for this. Robin Madison, who is our choir director, actually arranged this with her show choir, and they're amazing musicians. And what was very cool about this is obviously they got to showcase their talent and honor the heroes, but also all the students in the district got to hear them.
So I worked with these middle schoolers. So we put out there at the middle school a prompt for students to write about, and then they had the opportunity to speak in front of the whole entire district, which when you're in middle school, that's, you know, can be very nerve-wracking. So this group of students, we had Annie Anderson, Braylee Berger, Sophie Berger, Alexander Downs, Jillian Hawley, and Rainey Johnson. Again, chose to either write about what heroism means to them, 9/11, some chose to research specific individuals, and we had some personal connections to law enforcement and our emergency workers. And I think I was just most proud. Again, it's hard, you know, enough to write something so personal and then get up in front of the entire school district and share it with everyone. So really proud of this group.
And we had a special poem.
Yep, and I cannot take credit for the poem. Nancy Anderson had 2 of her 2nd graders, DeAndre and Oakland, recite a poem about Hero Day. They did a great job. They had it memorized, and they were really excited, and then they got there with the microphone, but they read with a lot of enthusiasm. It was really sweet.
It really was. And then Lindsay, do you want to also talk a little bit about the challenge coins for the kindergarten? We didn't have a specific picture of that one in this.
Yeah, so Dr. Grambo ordered some little coins, Hero Challenge coins, and throughout the days leading up to 9/11, I practiced with kindergartners shaking hands and looking in the heroes' eyes, our honorees' eyes, and telling them thank you. So we had worked and we had some volunteers that really wanted to be handshakers and say thank you, and we really practiced. And then the day of, I said, okay, I need my kindergarten helpers. I'm not a rookie, and that was a really big rookie mistake. I gotta call it something other than kindergarten, because about half the grade level stood up, and they were gonna come on over and grab a coin to say thank you to the heroes. But we got it figured out, and so the students grabbed a coin for me, and then they went over, and each one shook a hand, said thank you, and gave them the coin. So it was really sweet.
Yeah, it really was. And again, huge thanks, because this is a big feat to pull off from in the first 2 weeks of school. When you picture teaching a kindergartner how to hand out the coin, look in someone's eye and shake the hand, that is amazing. The readings, there was a moment in the readings where one of the students was a little nervous. It is nerve-wracking, and especially when you're out there reading in that system where it's echoey. So you hear your own voice and your voice comes back. And during practice, a little tentative and was worried and just absolutely nailed it. And Shannon was coaching her every step of the way to make her successful. Just a great event. So thank you so much, because like all of those things they described, that was them coming up with ideas to make it special. We just launched this little idea and they made it very, very special. So it was outstanding. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you very much for doing that. We look forward to next year.
Thank you.
May I have any questions or comments?
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thanks, and from a parent of a kindergarten who got to go do the handshake thing,
She was very
So,
excited.
so that was- Thank you for giving that opportunity.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4, reports. Listening session summary.
No.
Nobody's here? Okay. Superintendent update.
All right, so we have some financial reports, and those are the typical financial reports, go through the cash flow and the receipts, detailed receipts, so you can see all the expenditures. We'll go right to enrollment reports. If you can open that one up, please, Alicia. We talked about this, this is something I'm gonna talk about almost every time we bring this up. I'm going to talk through this process. I know you all get it, but if anyone is watching, this does get confusing because we look at enrollment so many different ways. This analysis of enrollment looks at where we started at the beginning of the year with the cohort of kids that's represented that grade. So like when we're looking at 3rd graders, they were last year's 2nd graders. And that number looks at where they left off. So we're looking at how kids come in and out of the district in that time. Overall, enrollment is down year over year. Because if you look at this data, you can see that our largest numbers are 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We're graduating bigger numbers than we're bringing in, but we're bringing more kids in through that in-migration process. One of our major areas of focus this year in terms of enrollment will be on open enrollment, because we are net negative in open enrollment, and we're going to be working on that. We want to make sure that everyone that has their child in this district sees this as the best choice. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why open enrollment out makes sense, but typically we want to make sure that we're net positive and we have more kids coming into the district, because that so many things are based on that. And again, we'll have that first Friday count. When that is certified, we'll update this, and then we'll sort of start from that point again. So we'll always have a running total of the year, but we'll reset and have a point in time captured at those important times. So first Friday, second Friday in January, and then April 1st. So you can always see that trend. And then when we get to next year, we'll start this process all over again with that same analysis.
So
Any
the
questions?
Yeah, the numbers in the first Friday, September, and second Friday, January, and April 1, these are all from last year.
Those are just copied over of this. They're the static version of this first slide. So they really won't come into play until after we have those numbers. So we just copied them over so we're ready for it. So the only thing we should really be looking at right now is at August 2025. And then we'll reset. After we get the September count, then we'll start looking at that tab. We'll switch to that tab so we can have updated numbers.
Well, the first Friday, September numbers are different than August.
The first Friday, yeah, we haven't updated anything on that tab. So whatever's on that tab is just what I copied over at one point in time. The only one that's updated is this first tab of the August 2025.
Okay, so they are from last year.
I'm not even sure when they're from. Whenever I copied them over, So probably in last spring's numbers.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that? Alrighty. The next thing on there is student achievement comparables, and this is something that I had mentioned early on that we would be looking at. And what this is all about is a way we can benchmark our student achievement success over time. We have several different tabs here. We're going to focus on two, the first tab and the third tab. We can look at all of them. It's all accurate data and they're all updated right now. But we're going to start with the way this data is pulled together. So Alicia, if you could go to the third tab, high performing comps. I'm going to start here because this is the most complicated of the data points. So what this is looking at, if we look at column G, that's the achievement score that's part of the Wisconsin State Report Card. It's pulled right from that data. So this would have been the 23-24 data, because we don't have the 24-25 yet. That'll be coming next month. That achievement score is the most general measure that the state offers of overall achievement between English language arts and math. It's combined. We could look at this data any number of ways, but the overall percentile ranking is based on that. With that number, you can see in the last column, L, the percentile rank achievement score statewide. If we look at Somerset's achievement statewide, we're at the 85th percentile. A couple things to note with this. It is only looking at K-12 districts. We have a number of unified high school districts that are 9-12 districts and many elementary districts that are K-8. I did not consider them because it's a bit of apples to oranges, but most of our districts, of the 421 districts, most are K-12 districts. So that's what we're looking at. That's what that percentile ranking looks at. Now this is high performing comps. So what we did down, if you scroll down a little bit and we look at rows 360 to 363. So all of the variables that came into generating this data. First, it's K-12 districts like I mentioned. Second, it's between 1,000 and 2,000 students, so sort of plus or minus 500 to have like-sized districts. Between 16 and 36% free and reduced lunch rate, that's a plus or minus 10% on the free and reduced lunch rate. That is a variable. It doesn't drive performance, but it's highly correlated to performance, so we looked at that as well. Then we ranked those districts, and I wanted to get to 20 for easy math, so I cut off the bottom 12. That's why they're high performing comps. So to get to 20, we only considered the highest 20 that fit that criteria. The idea then is we would benchmark our success against this group. So our goal would be to get into the upper quartile of this group. You can see that line between Kewaskum and Prescott. That's that line that we would want to cross to say we're of these high performing comps, we're in the upper quartile of that group. Now, we can consider this data any number of ways, and we will. So as an example, high school will be focusing on math achievement. They will be looking at these districts specifically saying, how is high school math operating in these districts? And they can compare a little bit more specific and a more fine-tuned look. But we want to stick with the districts that we decide. Reason being, it will help us fight the wave that the state sort of throws at us when they change the assessment, or they change the cut scores, or they change the rankings, and that's the next one that's going to come up. They're going to change the rankings. Every year they do that, it becomes more challenging for us if we don't do something like this. Say, how are we actually growing? Because no one's going to understand the scale score on the assessment. It gets really confusing and convoluted. So this will help us combat that a little bit. We'll be working with this. We have already with the admin team. We're actually meeting tomorrow. We're going through a process of taking the goals that have been established, because when you come on board for a school year, a lot of the work has already taken place. So the principals have done great work with their teams of establishing goals at the school level. We're going to take those goals and then take our district perspective and meet in the middle. From this point forward, we'll establish our district goals first, and that will cascade down to our school and teacher goals. This year it'll be just a little bit awkward. We'll meet in the middle, and that's the work we're doing. We started last Tuesday, we'll continue tomorrow. And then the goal would be in October to bring achievement goals to you for your consideration and approval. So we would have district goals set based on this data. So we would look at where we are and then set that goal. Typically what I look at, the formula that I like to use when looking at closing a gap. So if we're at the 85th percentile, to be in the upper quartile, we'd have to hit the 90th percentile in the state. The gap is 5 points. Split the difference, that's 2.5, and then we'd round up. So we'd be looking for 3 points of percentage growth, 3 percentile points of growth in 1 year. And then continually close that gap. So split the difference and add 1. If you just always split it in the middle, you'll never get it. You'll always be getting closer but never get there. So the idea is, how do we close that gap in a way that's reasonable? The closer you get to your goal score, that vision score, the more difficult it is because you're really fine tuning. In some of these areas, like if we looked just at achievement as an example, if we looked at middle school reading, we would be ranked higher in this district listing. So, but we're looking at overall achievement. We think if we look at overall achievement, that's the most stable goal. Growth is amazingly important. And from a teacher perspective and a student perspective is actually more important than overall achievement. But from a school or a district perspective, achievement's gonna be our driver because that's gonna be the most stable. And by creating these percentiles, it stabilizes that data so we'll be able to see growth over time. Now, if we take a look, that's high performing comps. Let's go to the first tab. This is just middle border. They are ranked in the opposite direction. I should have sorted it the other way because it's gonna get confusing. So now the top is towards the bottom. So you can see we have those 2 districts that are ahead of us. We would want to be in the top 2. So that's the same sort of benchmarking. These numbers are exactly the same. This is just a look at a smaller subset. Really interestingly, if you look at our middle border conference, not all conferences are like this. We're really similarly situated. Most of the districts in our athletic conference have a lot of similarities in terms of the demographics, the size of the district, a lot of the things that would go into this. So you'll see a lot of those districts show up on that other list as well. Now if we go to CISA 11, this again ranked top to bottom. You can see that out of the, I think we have 39 districts, there's only 5 that are scoring above us in overall achievement. So we won't specifically be benchmarking ourselves against CISA, but as we go up with our high performing comps, we'll also obviously be going up into CISA and the middle border conference. And then if you really wanted to see that last tab, we will be using this for not all that much. This is all the comps that fit in that data analysis without removing the bottom 12 performing districts. But we won't be using that for benchmarking at all. It was something that we did just to make sure everyone understood where the data came from. This does get confusing. We'll be bringing this back every time we talk about goals. We'll be talking about these percentile rankings and how we develop them and how that will benchmark our future success. Questions or comments?
Questions, anybody? Steve, any questions? No? Okay,
Thanks for being
I don't need, no question.
thanks.
Thank you for developing something, because we've gone through this year after year after year where something changes, and so we don't have last year's to look at for comparison, and now we have something stable that does.
Good.
So this, I think, will be a great improvement.
Good, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, we're not alone. Every district struggled with that. It was a tough thing to chase. So, and like I said, get ready. There's another iteration of a change coming our way.
Are there any other districts that do something similar, or is it based on certain formulas, or where did you come up with it? Pretty cool.
So this was something that I worked on in my previous district, very similar methodology, and it was obvious, it was literally out of the frustration that Lori just said. It was when they changed the test. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So we just went in and said, okay, how can we work on this? Perhaps someone in the audience helped work on this back in the day. So it was a complicated process, but now we know how to replicate it.
Just back to the referendum invoices, we should be starting to wrap up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
Not much left.
yeah, very soon. We're fine tuning now.
Okay.
There will be some contingency dollars. So they'll still be existing, but the main project will be done. So the keys work now. I'm able to get into PAC with my badge, so that's good. Few little things we have to get ready for the grand opening, but yeah, I'll be ready to roll.
Any leftover dollars at all?
Bruce, all gotta get spent.
I know, but is there anything that,
Yeah,
there will be
So
some?
there was a wish list
Mhm.
from the beginning, because we did cut, remember, to get it down, because our first one came over budget, remember, a year plus ago. So they pulled some of that stuff out, and then they had that on a wish list, and then as the project has gone forward and they've gotten to certain steps, they said, all right, we can add this back in, or this back in, you know, some of the woodwork, some of the additional spaces being built out, just added a few
But
different
there's
things they wanted.
everything
Parking
working.
lot paving, making sure they could do that whole thing instead of
Yep.
just a minor section,
Okay.
so.
But everything will get used up?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's nothing else that,
No, the wish list is more than the contingency, so,
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
in fact, we're to the point of saying that it's not gonna be bells and whistles, the contingency dollars will be spent on like practical things that we would have ended up taking care of in the future anyway,
Yeah.
so,
That road up there from the,
yeah.
one of the things, there was a road from the path to the track, and it was rock, and he kept bringing rock up onto the track, it was just like, you know, it's X $1,000s to just pay this and move that, and just those type of things.
So that's why they got paid,
Contingency,
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
to
Yeah.
use at the end. It wasn't in there like day one, but needs to be done, or should be done.
One of the things we'll be doing later in the spring, maybe winter, would be a pretty in-depth facility analysis. So we can have that sort of project done for the entire district, a good look at all of our roofs, all of our infrastructure, and then get that on a rotating schedule so we know when we want to be addressing it. And then when we talk about I can't believe we just had the annual meeting, we haven't even approved this year's budget yet, but for next year's budget, have a conversation about how we can start chipping away at some of these longer term projects without having to go to referendum, and put that off as long as we can. Because there's always needs, just like, you know, when you own your home, there's stuff you just need to take care of. It's not, you're not being fancy, it's just, you know, furnace goes out, a roof needs to be repaired, and we don't want to be behind the 8 ball on that.
Yeah, I have one more question on this.
Yes.
The, can you give an example, like take math or ELA or any of them?
Yeah.
Those numbers are still, they're coming from the standard tests.
Yes.
They're just not being adjusted with cut scores, they're raw numbers. Can you kind of remind us where those numbers come from?
Absolutely. So, and those are the numbers that change. Those are formulaic. So like the math achievement score is a 3-year look at overall achievement, the percentage of kids, actually the number of kids within the total population that are at proficient or advanced on the assessment. And you get points allocated for every student that is in that ranking. The problem is it doesn't mean anything. It only means something if you say, okay, well, I see that, that's great, but how do other districts do in the state? So that's why we convert it to a percentile. So all we do is take this, once the report card goes public, there's a giant data file you can download. It has all this data in it. Just sort them all, and then rank them by whatever we're looking at, and then apply a percentile to that. And then that's what we compare to. It's really, we could delete half of those columns and just say, all we're looking at is percentile, because no matter what happens, they change
of
that.
Points that
of-
they assign.
Yes, yep, so because the percentile will be consistent. If they change, let's say they retroactively change the formula to come up with a different number, assuming the variables were still the same, then the ranking would still be the same and the percentile would still be the same. Like if they just change the cut score. Like this used to mean proficient, now it doesn't. That wouldn't change the percentile ranking, so that stays solid and consistent. That's, and that's not something they give us, that we have to calculate. When we download that sheet, we have to calculate the percentile. They give us all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Based on what they want, how they want it converted.
Yeah, yeah. It's essentially the data file we download is what feeds those report cards that we see. It's all the data that goes into that report card that summarizes the district's performance. It's the kind of behind the scenes data. And we just bring it forward and look at it differently.
And how does the factor play in where, what are some of the categories where their scores don't count because they either have a special learning situation.
Sure, yep, yeah, that's,
Those scores will count.
that's called cell size is what you look at there. If you have a cell size, which is a certain number of students in a given population, if it's below a certain number, it's not reported out separately. It's still included in this, because this is all kids and their achievement. The only kids that wouldn't be part of this would be a very small slice of students that don't take the state assessment, but that's a really minuscule little slice. Everyone else would be included. It's the separate reporting. Fortunately, because of the way our district is arranged, we don't have any real small schools. Because we have the 3 schools on one campus, we have a large elementary. By comparison of districts throughout the state, our elementary school is actually sizable because we only have 1. That helps us out with this sort of data because we don't have a lot of those small cell sizes. Like, as an example, if you only had 14 kids with a disability, then that cell couldn't be counted separately and tracked separately.
Mhm.
But, yeah, that's getting in the weeds a bit. Yep.
Well, that helps, I appreciate it,
Okay.
thank you.
And I should point out too, because I think this might be confusing, that percentile ranking is the entire state. That's not the percentile ranking in these comparables. So it's not like we cherry-picked a set of districts and said, now let's see how we rank. We're looking at the state percentile given those criteria that I listed below.
Yeah.
The criteria only generates the list we compare to, not that percentile. That 85th percentile is all K-12 districts in the state, period.
Yeah.
So it's something we should be proud of.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right. Item number 5. This is a petition to alter school district boundaries. It's attached to the agenda. You should have all had a chance to take a look at it. This is on the agenda tonight to have a discussion about bringing this to a future meeting to decide whether or not we want to essentially waive the statutory requirement to allow this up for discussion. So we're not here to discuss the specifics of the petition. I'll pass it over to Dr. Gramo in a minute. Really, it's about just kind of understanding where we are in terms of statutory requirements, what we have to or don't have to do, so that we're all on the same page in a conversation. Dr. Gramo?
Yep, all right, thank you. Yeah, so this does get a little complicated, and I want to give you all the information that I can. And we're only looking at the one petition at this point. There is another petition in play that probably is important for you to understand as we consider this. So this petition is about detaching the property that's listed there from the Somerset district and attaching to the Osceola School District. This was a petition that was considered in the past, so technically we can't officially, we've received it, but we can't file it unless the board takes action to waive that statutory timeline that says it would have to be after the following July 1st before it could be reconsidered. Now, when this was considered in the past, there was a conversation that was taking place about a swap and a possible reconsideration if a swap were arranged. It is my understanding, talking to both parties, that there is a swap in play to 2, I would say, very comparable parcels of land in terms of the value of the land and the situation, not too far from one another on the northern end of the district. We won't get into the specifics because I really think it's important that we follow this step by step by step. So the first step would be, do we put this on an agenda in the future to consider waiving that timeline? Then there would need to be another action. If you decide that can take place at the same time, if you choose to put it on the agenda, not only to waive that timeline, but then to take action on do you accept the petition or not. That would be a separate process. And at the same time, there'd be a concurrent process taking place in the Osceola School District with the other property. I'm not going to offer a recommendation at this time one way or the other than a procedural recommendation. And that would be, if you decide as a board to consider this, I would recommend that we would consider a contingent motion that would essentially say, if we approve this and we want to move forward with this swap, that both contingencies would have to be satisfied. That Osceola would have to accept that swap, we would have to accept that swap. If both districts did not, then it wouldn't move forward. That way, neither district's at risk of making a decision and having the other side of that equation not follow through. But it does get a little complicated. The other property in play, I did talk with the property owner of the other property as well, and they were comfortable having me share this information, even though we technically don't have their petition on file. But thought it'd be important for you to know when you consider whether or not you want to put this on a future agenda.
Yeah, so we won't get that other petition, right? We can only deal with the petition in our district. And again, because it was denied, it was appealed and upheld, the property owners are essentially, they can't submit a petition until after July 1st of next year. So if we don't take any action, essentially we won't accept this petition, and I would assume we would see it again just after July 1st next year. Or we can waive that statutory requirement and have a conversation about this now.
At a future meeting.
Yeah, it won't be tonight. No, all we would say tonight is, yep, let's consider this, and then we'll put it on and work to put on the next agenda or, a future agenda.
Do we need a motion?
We
just put it on the agenda.
This would be, yeah, I think whatever procedure you typically use to put something on agenda, so if two of you agree, then we could put it on the agenda, because we're not taking any action other than saying, yes, this is a topic we would have for discussion at a future meeting.
I think we should put it on a future agenda.
Everybody else agree with that?
I'll second.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions at all about that procedure or what's been done in the past or ramifications for future? Does anybody have any concerns or questions about that?
Well, so Dave, are you working with, not working, but I mean, I'm guessing you're working with Osceola in the meantime in this process going through, if you've already talked to the other owner?
Yeah, so I've had conversations.
That they're going to be putting theirs in by, or is their petition going in now
Well, there's,
to their?
They
to Osceola?
submitted already to Osceola. That's my, and this is all based on my understanding, so I could be off on some of the details, but I'm almost certain that the petition is already in the hands of the Osceola School District. Other than that, it's been casual conversation with Osceola, nothing specific. Just wanting to make sure we're on the same page in terms of process. My ultimate recommendation is that you would make decisions based on the best interest of the Somerset School District and the well-being of the children involved in this process. That's the decision-making factor. Whatever Osceola chooses to do, they're gonna have to make up their mind how they wanna process. I would assume they would be doing the same thing, like what's in the best interest of their school district. But where it gets a little complicated is, although the swap is part of this equation, and I think needs to be part of the conversation, it still really is two separate sets of decisions that need to be made. And I would recommend that you would make that decision like you would any other in terms of the criteria that you would consider. And certainly if there's specific criteria you want to consider and you want information from me, I would get that. Obviously, we'll get you the maps, we'll get you the tax evaluation, that sort of thing. And it does get complicated. We have goofy borders. There's no way around it. We have a lot of islands. There's goofy things happening both at the north and the south end of the district. We're not alone there. A lot of districts have that going on, but a lot to consider.
the other thing I just add is, and I had asked, and I don't know if we know the exact answer, if a petition was previously filed with Osceola and denied, or if it wasn't. Because if it was and denied, we need to know, is Osceola gonna waive this requirement? And do we know that answer?
I do not know that.
Okay. If not, if this is a first time petition to Osceola, then obviously they have to consider it. So if they're considered, I think that we need to reconsider as well. But what I'm hearing is there's two of you that want to have this discussion, so maybe if you can get us that information about that previous.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'll look into some of the specifics too on the petition process, in terms of so if the petition would essentially fail for lack of action, is it on file or would it need to be refiled? What would that timeline look like? So we'll play out a couple scenarios so you can see what it would look like based on the decision making. But the way I see it, there's at least 4 decisions that would need to be made. One, well, I guess it's 3 or 4. The waiving of that timeline and then the acceptance of the petitions are all separate decisions that would need to be made. And then there's both districts essentially have a say in both of those petitions. That's where it starts to get complicated if one is a new petition and one is a refiling of a petition.
Okay. All right, so this will come back, probably the next regular
next
meeting?
work session.
For work session, 2 weeks?
I think for consideration, I can give you
Okay.
the information at the work session,
You'll
we
be
can
able
go
to
through
by
it.
then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this will be back on the October 6th work session
Mhm.
with additional information.
Yep.
Anybody have anything else?
Not for action, I wouldn't
Right.
recommend that, yeah, work session, typical discussion
Yep.
and exploration, but then you'd have everything you need, and then at that point, if there's something really specific, like, okay, that makes sense generally, but we want this question answered, I could have that by the following regular session, so you'd have all the information you need.
When does this get voted on if we would approve and Osceola would approve? I mean, when does this come to vote? Like you're saying these contingencies and all this, but like, if we're saying it's contingent on, if it was just one of the scenarios was contingent on Osceola doing the same.
Essentially,
When does this happen? Like, if we said this in October, then, so is it now kind of Osceola do their
So, yeah,
vote? And does it
that-
happen like in October, November, or do we gotta wait till February, or what's the timeline?
Yeah, we can't control what Osceola will do. I mean, the timeline, I would recommend one of two timelines for us. If at that work session you decide then you want to consider the actual petition and you want to waive that timeline at the regular meeting, you could also, before that point, say, let's just expedite this process and have both of those decisions made at the same time. That yes, we want to waive that timeline and we want to take action, and then we're done with that side of the process on that petition. So it could be done as soon as the October regular meeting. You could also decide that you want to do that in 2 phases, and you want to say, first step will be determine if we're going to waive or not. That action is taken, and then at a subsequent meeting, action on the merits of the petition would be a separate process. So you could do either. The disadvantage of having it stretched out like that, of course, is that people are waiting for the information. I would recommend that, like if you feel you don't have all the information, then I would suggest we'd spread it out. If you feel like, I think we have everything we need to make the decision, then we could go ahead and go for it.
Well, it just sounds like we would, and we'll have it quickly.
Yeah, so-
We wanna make this drag out.
So essentially, October 6th, we would decide, there'd be action on whether or not we waive the deadline. At that point, our next agenda item would be the petition, right? And we'd have all the contingencies laid out. Everyone then would have 2 weeks, bring it all back to the regular session, decide. We could pass it with contingencies, but then it's on Osceola's court,
Right.
whether or not they ever deal with it.
Yes, and as I'm sounding like I'm speaking really definitively, this is all very new to me too, so we'll be walking through this slowly, I don't wanna make any mistakes. So I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, but also just know that, I wanna make sure we have all the i's dotted and t's crossed as we go through this process.
Yeah, and as one consideration, assuming that there can always, the decision can always encourage or discourage more of this, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
do we want or not?
Yep, yes, I would highly recommend considering that as you're talking through it.
So as we build the next agenda, we'll have 2 agenda items, correct? If we deny waiving that deadline, would we just, would we at that point amend the agenda to remove that? How would we do that?
Well, we'll have the work session first, so at that point, there's only discussion. So then I think you can decide if you want 2 motions or 2 agenda items or not. So I would say at this point, we don't know how many
So that
agenda
will
items
happen
are.
on October 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
October 6th would be, and really we're not even making a decision until the 20th.
Right, exactly.
About waiving.
October 6th would be, do you want to consider that, waiving that requirement? And then if you do, but anytime between October 26th and October 20th, when we have to post the agenda, you could say, well, let's also put on the consideration of the petition at that same time. But we can base that on the information you have and if you need anything else.
Okay.
I just don't want to promise that, oh yeah, I'll have everything you need, and then there's something that I didn't think of.
Got it. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, just to come back, October 6th. Item number 6, this is items for approval. Any questions? Does anyone make a motion based on what is presented here?
I'll make a motion to approve the field trip for Spanish band and choir, the minutes of each of the meetings listed, the board bills, and the donation as presented.
There was, yep.
Yeah.
There's a motion by Lori, is there a second? I'll second. Second by Ian. Any discussion? Bruce, you have any questions at all?
I didn't see this.
I do have one question about that donation, actually. So it lists something to the effect of classrooms.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what does that entail? Where does that land in the budget? What does that actually support?
So yeah, when it says, so every classroom teacher has a classroom budget, and that's for incidental supplies or things. So like if they want to do a project that's like an enhancement of the curriculum, that could go for, like, it might be art supplies in elementary. But every teacher has a budget for their discretionary work, and it would likely be that. Because of the amount, I would imagine that the principal would have some discretion in how it's gonna be distributed. But yeah, every teacher has a classroom budget. Like as an example, in the CTE world, they have a pretty expansive budget because they're gonna be covering all of their supplies and stuff. If you're a third grade classroom teacher, it's not that much because most of the stuff you have is supplied through the regular curriculum
So
process.
if someone wanted to make a donation to a specific teacher's budget, can that happen?
We would, no. Technically speaking, when a donation comes into the district, they're district funds. Almost never would we not comply with the wish of the person donating. If there were any question, we'd say, you know what, I'm sorry, but we can't accept it that way. Like, let's just, I mean, we'll go hypothetical in a way that's so bizarre that it actually wouldn't happen, but just like, let's say someone said, I have $10,000, and that was my favorite fourth grade teacher. I want them to have all that money for their classroom. We'd say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. We would love to accept the donation, but we'd have to distribute it in a different way.
Okay.
So, yeah, technically, we would, when we accept this for a TV support of the classrooms, that would be principal discretion to support because they're the ones that create the classroom budgets.
Okay. And my last question about donations, do we have a list anywhere that anybody in the public could go to the website and see, I want to make a donation? The Plaza is a great example, right? In all that time that thing was built out, they raised a ton of money. I never once saw an opportunity to donate, and I
Yeah.
would have, until I was at the football game and realized all this money that came in. So do you know, do we have anywhere that,
I don't know, but I can find out. And Rochelle handles all this work, and Rochelle is very detail oriented and on top of things. So I'm guessing it wouldn't be hard to put
Okay.
together. She probably would have that. So,
Okay.
but I don't know if there is something like that.
okay, and then I guess my last thing, and I can ask her, I previously tried to get Somerset enrolled in a Benevity through my employer.
Okay.
That never was finished up,
Okay.
right? So the employer actually pulled the application. If there's a point, and maybe it's Rod, that we can make sure, you know, for matching funds,
Rod would be the one.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep.
Matt, I heard from several community members the same thing, that they would have, if they had known, they would have
Yeah.
donated. And they
Yeah.
were sorry they missed the opportunity.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, I was working the concession that night, and they did this whole thing, and I'm like, I went out and looked at all those names, and, I mean, obviously, they raised enough money, did a great job, but, yeah, I would love to have it
Mhm.
public somewhere where people could, you know,
Yeah.
donate money. Get something else?
Yeah, but I'll wait.
Okay, all right, there's any other discussion or questions? There's a motion, there's a second. Do we have, no, we've lost Steve? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, general information. October 6th is our work session. That'll be at 6 p.m. October 20th, regular session with a listening session 30 minutes prior. And then item number 8 is district celebrations. Corey, can I start with you?
Love the Heroes Day presentation. It's a cool new thing to add in the district, so just wanted to make it because that, so thanks for the presentation.
Thanks. Ian?
Yeah, I'll look at that. Amanda, Lindsay, and Shannon did a great job. Sounds like it went really well. Very encouraging.
Lori?
And it's homecoming week, so there are lots of activities going on. 7th and 8th grade sports have been going for a couple of weeks now. The all-school 1944 to 1975 class reunion is coming up. They've got tours of our district scheduled for 4 o'clock on Friday, and the grand opening of the Performing Arts Center. Yeah, at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Great. Bruce?
same thing, lots of stuff going on around campus. I wanted to make a comment, somebody, just a random person at work, came here to watch their grandson play football on a Saturday, and he saw the plaza, and he was just talking about that, but then he also commented on how awesome it was. It was talking to actually his crew just about having all these buildings on this site, and how amazing it is to have that, and how they hate going to other places that you're trying to figure out and find where. He's like, everything's right there. He was like, I don't know, everyone doesn't do it. He's like, it's awesome. So just, you know, there's been a lot of planning and things that have happened, and I'm told there's enough room for another school to add, so, people recognize it and see it, so that's great to
That was
see.
the forethought of the school board when, Mr. Seibel was on, or was superintendent here.
Yeah, so, I mean, so everyone who did that in the past, or whatever, people are noticing, and then, yeah, thanks Kelly Larson again for speaking tonight, and everybody who donated and was a part of that event, and Troy especially for doing that. I know it was a little while ago, but that took a lot, and just great to see every time you go out there and point out to kind of students as well about what it means. So, yeah, enjoy homecoming, everybody.
Yeah.
I was along the same lines, just looking forward to Friday night football and helping out with concessions, and got kids going to the dance, and we're excited.
I want to say thanks to Kelly Larson for coming in and speaking. That's a tough place to put herself into with the emotion there, and I just applaud her for everything her family has offered this district. So thanks to everybody that worked in that plaza. Bruce, you were a huge piece of that. So thanks for all the time, energy, effort, and money you put into it. And we do not have Steve.
No, and I was just emailing him, he said he doesn't have anything for district celebrations.
All right. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Bruce. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Corey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Adjourned at 6:51.
Let me know.